Rachel and Leah used their maids to have children, just as Sarah did. Hi, I'm Ronald, and welcome to Bible Talk, where I break down and discuss parts of the Bible. And I'm continuing the book of Genesis, chapters 30. Up until this point, Jacob had married two sisters, Rachel and Leah. He agreed to work for 7 years to get Laban's permission to marry Rachel. But then Laban tricked him and had him marry Leah. So he agreed to work for another 7 years to marry Rachel. Note that he didn't have to wait 7 years to marry Rachel. Verses 29, 27, and 30 both indicate that after his 7-day marriage celebration to Leah, he could marry Rachel as well, and then he would work off the 7 years. Now, we begin chapter 30, and by this point, Leah has given birth to 4 sons, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. And when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister and said to Jacob, "Give me children or else I die." And Jacob's anger was aroused against Rachel, and he said, "Am I in the place of God who has withheld you from the fruit of the womb?" So she said, "Here's my maid Bilhah. Go into her, and she will bear a child on my knees, and I may also have children by her." Then she gave him Bilhah, her maid, as a wife, and Jacob went into her. Now, despite Rachel's great beauty, she also felt near despair. One could imagine Leah saying, "If I only had my sister's beauty and my husband's love, I would be happy." And no doubt Rachel often said, "If I only had sons like my sister, I would be happy." Beautiful or plain, we all have our problems. Now, this principle shows us the need to stop looking at how God deals with others and set our eyes on Him. Jesus taught the same principle to Peter in John 21:19-21. So, "Here's my maid Bilhah. Go into her, and she will bear a child on my knees, that I may also have children by her," much like Sarah gave Hagar to Abraham in a surrogate mother-type arrangement, Genesis 16. So Rachel gave her maid Bilhah to Jacob. Now, the phrase "bears a child on my knees" refers to the ancient practice of surrogate adoption. Some believe that the phrase refers only to a symbolic placement of the child on the knees of one who adopts it, and others believe that it refers to the surrogate sitting on the lap of the adoptive mother during the insemination and birth. Then, verses 9-11, Leah, who had stopped bearing children, figured she could do the same surrogate mother method to increase the number of her children, so she gives her maid Zilpah to Jacob, as Rachel had done. Jacob's wives continue to use children as pawns in a power struggle within the home. Verses 14-18, Reuben then goes in the days of wheat harvest, finds mandrakes in a field, and brings them into his mother Leah. Then Rachel says to her, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." But she said to her, "Is it a small matter that you have taken away my husband? Would you also take away my son's mandrakes?" as Rachel said. "Therefore, he will lie with you tonight for your son's mandrakes." So when Jacob came out of the field in the evening, Leah met him and said, "You must come into me, for I have surely hired you with my son's mandrakes." And he lay with her that night, and God listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a 5th son. And Leah said, "God has given me my wages, because I have given my maid to my husband." Now, the mandrake is a root called the love apple in Hebrew. They were thought to increase fertility in women, and still among some today. Because Leah had the mandrakes, she knew that Jacob would have relations with her, believing that there was a greater likelihood that she would become pregnant. Now, the hostility between Leah and Rachel was as evident as it was painful. It must have been terrible living in a home where one would believe that the other had stolen her husband from her. And this confirms the wisdom of God's original plan as expressed in Genesis 2:4. One man to be joined to one woman in a one flesh relationship. Later in Leviticus 18:18, it forbade the marrying of sisters, and this shows why. Is it any wonder that family had a history of strife and bloodshed? Children reflect the atmosphere of the home. Now the sisters continued to have children to outdo each other, and now Rachel herself had a son with Jacob. Verse 22, God's sovereignty over the womb. Then God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her and opened her womb. Now, the Bible repeatedly emphasizes God's sovereignty over the womb. Although God's purposes in opening and closing the womb may be completely unknowable, God does have a purpose. God granted twins to Rebekah in Genesis 25:21. He opened the womb of Leah in Genesis 29:31. And he closed the womb of Hannah for a time in 1 Samuel 1:5. Now, the 11th son born to Jacob through Rachel was named Joseph, meaning may he add. Rachel felt vindicated by the birth of one son, but longed to have more children to continue this competition with her sister Leah. At this point, one might think that this 11th son would end up being the key son used to further God's redemptive purpose through this family. Yet Isaiah 55:8-9 is true. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, says the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. Now, around the time Rachel gives birth to Joseph, Jacob is wrapping up his 14-year service to his father-in-law, so he asks for permission to leave. Now remember, he needs to return to Canaan because that is the land God promised him. But Laban doesn't want him to go because he discovers that God blesses him through Jacob's presence there. Now I'm going to leave it here for today. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you a great day and God bless.